this is Jessica DeMassa, and I'm here with Dr. Daniel Kraft. He is the founder and chair for Exponential Medicine by Singularity University. Dr. Kraft, good to see you as always. How are you?
Great to be here in the mix of Vegas.
Yes, we are here at HIMSS. So what brings you to HIMSS?
I came to HIMSS to catch up with what's happening in healthcare IT interoperability. I'm doing a talk here at the Intelligent Health Pavilion tomorrow, and did a live Facebook Live event today, but also run into lots of friends and compatriots from across the healthcare spectrum, so it's a great coming together.
Now, you and I usually talk a lot about exponential technologies. We talk about the big, bold future of healthcare and bleeding edge innovation. Here, not so much. We're talking about the front, I call it the front line of innovation, really. It's where those innovative ideas are really being integrated into the health system and people are trying to deal with the madness thereof. So I'm going to ask you something I've never asked you before. What do you think about interoperability in healthcare? What do we need to do to make that work?
I mean, WTF interoperability?
Yes.
Always a big challenge, because I think part of this future, this grand future of healthcare, is connecting all these dots from our little wearables that can track our sleep, to our genomics information, to our EHR, to our PHR, to our mobile, all these elements, and it only really becomes valuable when you can connect them together and hopefully have that in the hands of the consumer, the patient, and then cross the continuum from prevention and well-being to early diagnostics, to managing disease, to clinical trials. And I think what we see here, compared to when I first came maybe 5 or 6 years ago, is that some of those dots are starting to be connected. Some of the interoperability is being worked out. Big announcements in the last even 3 months that your Apple HealthKit data can now talk to EMRs at 12 hospitals. The fact that Amazon is getting to health, announcements from Apple. So the consumerization piece, meeting with the HIT piece, really takes it out of the usual clinical environment where we're sort of used to thinking about healthcare and distributes it. So I think this is an interesting convergence point. Everything's not perfect. There's lots of challenges and barriers, but we're starting to see some of those dots connect in really powerful ways.
So there's different kind of innovators in health, right? You've got those bleeding edge innovators that are doing the things that you're talking about at Exponential Medicine, and then you've got the innovators that are here who are working within the system to kind of integrate those big ideas in. So we're seeing a lot of AI companies this year, we're seeing a lot of blockchain companies this year. What's your advice for the two different kinds of innovators? Like, what can a frontline innovator learn from a bleeding edge innovator working with Expo-Techs and vice versa?
Well, of course, if you innovate, you have to dangle in blockchain and AI if it's going to be a new company.
Daniel, I have to hashtag those things, otherwise it won't get shared.
But part of that is, we talk at Exponential Medicine a lot about where's the pace of these technologies, where will AI be in 2 years, or how could blockchain as another kind of form of technology be applied to medical records? And here, while folks are blending those as buzzwords, it does mean the innovators are often a couple years ahead, already thinking about how those can plug into addressing unmet needs. And any innovator out there needs to think about the soup that you live in. Just like politics, healthcare is often local. It can be local to that particular operating room or a clinic or clinician type or clinical challenge. So it doesn't mean just understanding from the patient problem, but also the nurse, the payer, the pharma, the OR, the pharmacist. So I think some of the bleeding edge folks are sometimes, I've got a little problem, I'm going to solve it with some little widget or device or platform. And then what happens here at HIMSS is you see some of the smaller companies around us in this part of the pavilion blend with some of the larger ones. We're starting to see in digital health some of that convergence and acquisitions happen, whether it's Apple buying companies that can track your sleep or pharma companies blending with pharmacies and payers. So the future's being built by some of the fast innovators and now some of the slower but fast followers who can really move this to scale.
All right, because you keep name dropping these big consumer tech companies like Google and Apple and Amazon, and then let's throw in the Berkshire Hathaway, whole JP Morgan.
Uber's here.
Ubering
healthcare, that's
happening.
Right,
no, it's totally happening. Yeah. So, those companies are starting to enter in, and we're seeing a different perspective from Silicon Valley enter into the healthcare conversation. What do you think this is going to mean for all the healthcare innovators that are out there?
Well, because these giant companies, including the Facebooks, the Samsungs, the Googles, the Amazon, they're brilliant at the user interface, at getting folks engaged and sometimes over-engaged and hooked on our technology. And where this blends, hopefully, is that healthcare will become not something you go to the doctor for when you have a problem, sort of the reactive sick care model, but to be this continuous and proactive world where your Amazon Alexa or Google Home or whatever is helping coach you or talk to you or listens to your cough and says, geez, Daniel, that sounds like a pneumonia. Or you can go, hey, Google Home, make me an appointment with my nutritionist, and it'll already know the data from your fridge and your buying and other habits. So I think it's going to be this blend of hopefully not making healthcare a destination, but something that becomes continuous and then helps push us to be that proactive and preventative side, the well-being side that can keep us with a health span. And so I think the power again of these, and also these big companies have a lot of big data and they're starting to mash them up. The Googles of the world applying machine learning to looking at retinas and predicting heart disease, or Instagram from Facebook that can predict who's getting depressed or might even be suicidal. So these worlds are sometimes coming together, and it's where you can mash up these big challenges with big platforms where a lot of the interesting things happen. They're not always inventing it, but they're putting it to play.
Now, before we got on air, you were giving me a list of all of the places around the world where you have recently been. And I would love to know, I mean, what was on that list? Like Santiago, Chile? I mean, you've been like, oh, that's next week, sorry. I mean, you've been like all over, and so I'm really passionate about this whole idea of the globalization of this health innovation conversation, because there's so much to learn from the way I think other innovators in other countries are tackling some of the same problems we're tackling here. What have you noticed? Like, what are some of the key takeaways that you've seen in that regard? Like, what are some of the big lessons you've learned about how some innovators in these other countries are taking on some of these big health challenges we're facing here?
You know, one lesson is that innovation is not Silicon Valley centric.
Right, thank God.
And sometimes you can do things in other places. You know, Africa is where mobile health really took off because you had phones and SMS phones, and there weren't the lobbies who built the hardwire phone lines to go over. So some places of the world can innovate faster, and then the lessons can come back to the U.S. and more Western.
What are some of those places that you've seen, like some of these, like where they've kind of leapfrogged over us? Is there any?
Well, I was just in South Africa over December, and some of the early work, particularly with HIV, rolled out there, where they learned that to get folks even HIV tested, you needed to put the kids together in the village, use their own language in different tribes, get folks integrated based on their culture and their language and their age. Healthcare isn't one size fits all. We can democratize healthcare. I mean, the fact that my supercomputer in my pocket enables a rural farmer in rural Tanzania to have the connectivity and knowledge that the President of the United States only had 20 years ago, 10 years ago, gives a lot of new opportunity. And then to be able to call in the drone, right?
Right.
So to bring your blood or your vaccine or your medical device. So some of those lessons can only really happen in places where there's truly unmet need and there isn't a clinician for hundreds or thousands of miles. And part of what we often try and do at Exponential Medicine is bring lessons of innovation, whether it's from the Dutch or folks from Latin America or from Africa or Asia together, so we're cross-fertilizing and not reinventing the wheel and can catalyze and accelerate healthcare, because a lot of Me Too companies are around.
Yeah.
A lot of lessons can be learned. Companies like countries like UK that have NHS, not the perfect system, but there's a lot of things that the NHS can do powerfully. Or small countries like Israel, where they have an integrated system where everyone's on an EMR.
Right.
The lessons that can be gleaned there can be applied to other spots in the world, and that means we need new thinking. And as 3 billion people come online with internet activity, and we can start to crowdsource healthcare, that provides a lot of opportunity.
I understand, speaking of coming online, something new is coming online from you, and you are launching digital.health. So you want to talk about that a little bit? What's that going to have? What's that going to address? What can we expect to see?
Well, one of the unmet needs is there's a lot of new solutions and tools and technologies that fit into the mobile, connected, digital health, or whatever your favorite buzzword might be. And as I go around, I meet a lot of clinicians and payers and nurses and patients. They often don't have any clue of what's already here. They want to track their sleep. Well, there's rings that can do that. Or you can use your Fitbit. You want to track your EKG. You can do that on your smartphone today. There are platforms to help prevent type 2 diabetes or reverse it. There's a whole laundry list of things, some of which are already FDA approved, some of which don't require FDA approval. And so digital.health is going to start out as to be a bit of a pharmacopoeia, where as a clinician, a nurse, a pharmacist, you can find the tools that match your patient who's got prediabetes and hypertension. Here's the connected blood pressure cuffs and kits and some apps that work. And I'm not trying to boil the ocean and rank, but I'm going to try hopefully use my lens of sort of collating and putting together.
So it's doctor-focused?
Well, clinician-focused. To start with, a clinician will literally prescribe a device, an app, a wearable, a digiceutical. Also find what's happening with the FDA and other tools. But so there'll be some convergence of news and activity, but a bit of a one-stop location where you can find what's available for mental health, for maybe treating an opiate withdrawal, or managing a mental health issue, or managing apps that have already been developed for cardiovascular disease or COPD. And hopefully also be a platform to enable new innovators, physicians, patients, doctors to find, we don't want to jump through the old hoops. What's the latest with the FDA and treating software as a medical device?
Yeah.
So you can go to digital.health now and sign up to be a beta user. We'll launch that within the next couple months.
Fantastic, congratulations on that. Last question for you. So we are launching something new here ourselves, and so we're asking everybody to weigh in on WTF Health. So what's the future health? We want to know, from you. I mean, I think everybody's had that moment in healthcare where it's like, oh my God, this can't be the reality that we're facing on a day-to-day basis. What's been your WTF Health moment, and how have you gone past and overcome?
Well, I came with my wife to a clinic visit with a Stanford-affiliated center the other day. They're still using fax machines, and you're still often using clipboards. And you're still getting the same pamphlets before a little orthopedic procedure or whatever it might be. So I think the WTF of healthcare partly is that all of this can be personalized and tuned. If you're going to go in and get a little orthopedic procedure on your foot, your app will help you understand the procedure. You might use VR, AR to understand the pre-op and actual case and what's going to happen. The language that they use, the user interface won't look the same for everybody. So your nudges, your digital footprints and nudges can be tuned, and that information will flow not just as data, but as actual information to your clinician in a workflow that's empowering and it rewards using some of those pieces. So I think the WTF is that we can personalize, we can integrate this into the workflow, we can align incentives, and that just like we want precision medicine with drugs and beyond, that the connected digital healthcare IT world will also become much more tuned and adaptive to who you are, where you are, and what you need when you need it, even before you know you might need it.
Fantastic. Thanks so much for joining us. It's always a pleasure to talk to you. Can you tell me when Exponential Medicine is this year?
Great question, Jessica.
Oh my God, I could see it in your eyes.
Well, you've been there a few times.
Oh my God, it's my favorite. It's one of my favorites.
Exponentialmedicine.com. We hold this conference 4 days at the Hotel Del Coronado this November 4th through 7th, 2018. You can apply at exponentialmedicine.com, and it's an amazing 4 days where we look at not just HIT, but everything from drones and chatbots to genomics and 3D printing and nanotech, and how do these all converge, and how do we catalyze and reinvent the future of health and medicine?
It's true. It's some of the most inspiring speakers that you'll ever hear, and truly, as far as health innovation conferences go, I feel like that's the one where you can go and have your soul uplifted and feel like, oh my gosh, the possibility in healthcare is just tremendous.
Silent discos, beach meditation.
Oh yeah, silent disco can be that.
Yeah.
All right, thanks so much. It's been a pleasure speaking with you. I'm Jessica DeMassa with Dr. Daniel Kraft. Thanks so much.